Welcome to another episode of the Bobcast, and we will open up this week with our first conversation this year with first-year swimming coach Brian Christensen. And Coach, welcome to Frostburg. Your first season here, your first season as a head coach. What brought you to Frostburg? What made this opportunity appealing to you? And then what really drew you to this position?
Well, I've been looking to make the jump for a while to a head coach position, and Frostburg popped up, and I didn't know too much about it. Started doing some research, got more interested, saying, "Oh, maybe this could be a really good fit." Program's on the rise. Really excited about that. I think it's a really attractive program to hop in and do that. To work with some of the swimmers, and of course, it's on the rise. You graduate a lot of athletes, but I think there's a ton of really good talent here. It's really exciting to see and be able to put my stamp on the program. I'm interested in the level that Frostburg was in, where I can help and hopefully make us a lot better. I feel like we are in kind of that constant rebuilding. I don't know if Frostburg is rebuilding. I think they're building, which was a cool spot to hop in on.
Sure, and last year was kind of a peak of that building process with Christian March and Macy Nitchie, and being surrounded by some other talent, setting a lot of relay records, and March and Nitchie being the swimmers of the year. But they have since graduated, so you are in a building sense here with the program. Coach, what is your background in terms of swimming and coaching at the college level to this point?
Well, I've been coaching for 10 years now.
Sure.
Starting in the age group level and then making that jump. About 7 years ago, I was a volunteer at the Rochester Institute of Technology. And then from there, I coached a year of high school. I'm from the Rochester area in New York. Eventually worked at the State University of New York at New Paltz for 2 years as an assistant. We had some great years there. They actually had a national champion in the 200 butterfly, Cooper Knapp, last year. So I coached him for a year, and then he won after I left. But I spent the past year at John Carroll University in Cleveland, Ohio. So I kind of bounced around a little bit, just getting a lot of really different experience. RIT was like a massive technical school of 20,000 kids, and New Paltz was a school a lot like this, about 6,000 kids, state school. Then John Carroll is at 3,000 person Catholic Jesuit private school. So all these experiences, working with really different athletes, really different kids, really different backgrounds, I think has really helped me. I kind of had a lot of different duties at different schools, kind of learning the ins and outs of how this job works, and I think really preparing me to do well here.
Well, how has your life changed from going as an assistant coach to a head coach and really the CEO of a program and having to deal with all the things? And how has being an assistant coach sort of prepared you for this role?
Yeah, John Carroll was a good experience because they made me do everything. I would not have been able to run this meet this past weekend if not for having run all of John Carroll's meets last year, doing just about the exact same thing. So kudos to them. I'll shout out to John Carroll, doing a great job of prepping their assistants to become head coaches. But yeah, I've always wanted this role. As kind of the assistant, you're doing everything, and then getting no credit for it. But I like that pressure. I like that that responsibility. That's kind of I think we're all athletes and coaches. We're all pretty competitive people. We all want our names up there. That's kind of what's been driving me. So, in terms of life changing, it's a lot more work. There's a lot more of those in and outs. But I'd always get frustrated not being able to make those decisions. So, I'm really relishing the opportunity here.
Well, here you are as the head coach here at Frostburg. The swimming season kind of sneaks up on you for being a winter in quotation marks sport starting this past week. What's the process that you've really come in here and gotten to know your team, and what's it been like to get to work with the Frostburg swimmers that are here?
Yeah, and it's certainly been tough. I technically started 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks into our season, which puts me at a weird spot for sure. And I think getting to know the team is like the most important thing, knowing how they tick, knowing what they're capable of. I tried to have a lot of individual meetings with every athlete, kind of understanding their goals and their background, where they're coming from, and just learning more about them. That's the biggest thing. And then it's kind of understanding what they did last year, kind of what their expectations are, what they're looking for in a coach, what coaching styles work for them. I don't really have time to like figure this out and develop it, so I've been very direct
Mm-hmm.
with them, literally asking like, "What do you need from me?" Um, and then I think the biggest thing is then me just listening, trying to really hear what they're saying, and then adapting what I do. And I think that they have adapted pretty well so far, or at least they don't know me enough to complain.
Uh-huh.
I think that comfortability increases and
Oh,
kids
for
get more
sure. Over
familiar.
time.
Um, but it's been a good ride so far, and we'll kind of see how that continues to develop.
Well, with having a style, trying to adapt to each individual athlete, and we've run into this with tennis, cross country, track and field, swimming, with all the different individual athletes. Maybe different ones need different styles. Do you have an overall coaching philosophy that you try to follow in terms of your training or your goals, or what direction you want this program to head, just generally?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to develop some independence on the kids' part, with my guidance. A lot of my philosophy is, we gotta be going hard, working hard every day. You'll be showing up to practice. If you are late or you miss practice, I mean, your punishment is you get worse at swimming. And if that's not enough of a punishment for you, then you don't really have a place on this team. Um, so that's kind of my thing, and I try to facilitate that. I try to guide kids, but I want them responsible for their own warm ups and their own stretching, if and their own sleep, and if they're feeling bad, I'll guide them, I'll help them, but ultimately, we're trying to make adults out of these kids and help that transition. So, um, within reason, I'm trying to hold a lot of hands, make sure the kids are just like learning that what they're gonna get out of this sport is what they put in, and hopefully that translates into like life. I think you got a life what you put in it, and you can't have somebody yelling at you to go get a job. You need to go out and do it.
So looking at a culture of independence and accountability, let's shift over to the 2018-2019 season. What are you looking at in terms of your contributors, people you're seeing on the men's side, the women's side, someone who can help you on a regular basis or reach the finals in the conference meet in their particular event?
So I'll start with our captains on the men's side, Luke Holloway and Hunter McFalls. I think have done a great job. Um, really, actually, both of them have gone above and beyond my expectations so far in kind of helping this transition and making sure the team's in a good spot. And I'd expect Luke to do really well this year. He had an excellent meet this past weekend. Do really well. And then kind of the other sophomore, Anthony. I'm sorry, Anthony. I'm gonna ruin your last name.
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe. I was gonna say like GS Petty or something.
I got you, Coach.
Giuseppe. I'll get your name down eventually. He is a tremendous racer. He does a lot of things that I look for. I try to use him as an example. We're still kind of looking for a breaststroker. I guess I hear this guy Christian was a breaststroker for 4 years, so
He was pretty good.
he was like okay, right?
Yes.
So we're still kind of looking for someone to fill that hole. It might be Luke. I think that competition's wide open right now. Looking at some unorthodox things, I think this distance freshman Adam Stein, he might be the breaststroke guy. We'll kind of keep figuring that out. We've also got a little bit of butterfly competition. Brady Pearson's been our guy for a while. I think a freshman. Cameron Edwards can maybe slide in that role. We could use Brady for something else, maybe Brady for breaststroke. So we're definitely in this transition year where we're kind of filling new roles for people, filling gaps and stuff. And then our other freshman, Luke Russell, I think, coming from a really limited background. He's only been swimming for like 2 or 3 years, but I think he could already be one of our top guys. He's got some pretty lofty goals for himself. I'm excited to see him develop. Then on the women's side,
Yes, sir.
um, I'll mention our captains, Emily Turner and Maddie Weinberger. Have both done an exceptional job. I can rely on them just about anything. I was texting them this morning. They responded right back, like, you got it, coach. And that's really good to have in that transition because, these seniors, they know the team more than I do. It is more their team than mine at this point. And so I think it's a good relationship right now. We're relying on them. Maddie will obviously want to hit that breaststroke again. And Emily has been a backstroker. I think there's a lot of continuity there, which is good. And then beyond that, we're kind of open. I got a lot of newcomers. I think Haley Benedictus could be a great freestyler. She's a breaststroker as well. I think she could hopefully do well. Kind of as our number 2 behind Maddie right now, and then I've already told her she needs to take over when Maddie graduates. Butterfly, we got a lot of options. I think Taylor Stanback returning could do really well. Freshman Aubrey Morris. There's a little competition there, which is exciting. I think Aubrey can be a great freestyler as well. And then, on the distance side, Becca Marsh has been working really, really hard. And she's I'm just trying to think. She's been struggling a little bit. Just she has some injuries. She's been like sick lately, but she like just comes in every day and doesn't complain. She probably should complain more because she needs to like take a practice off. But she just like is the that perfect distance mentality you want, where you're just gonna like keep going, after it hurts. We have a ton of distance girls this year. We have like so more than I think I've ever had on a team.
Sure.
A lot of girls this weekend were kind of like, why wasn't I in the 8 free? And I was like, because we had like 6 other girls in the 8 free. So, it'll be good on the women's side to kind of rotate and take the pressure off some of those distance people instead of doing the the 8 free and the 4 free in meters or the 1,000 free and 5 free in yards. Can kind of alternate. You don't necessarily have to load up. The men got to load up. We don't have a lot of distance men, but the women, I think, will be a better program because we can kind of like transition and focus. We don't have to like crush them every single meet, and then that also gives them an opportunity to work on some of the third events, some of their
Sure.
We got a couple of 4IMers, a couple of backstrokers, a couple of flyers kind of in there. Really getting to work everything, which would be pretty exciting.
So that's a nice little overview of what we can expect this year, or who we can expect to hear from this year. But let's hit finally the opening meet, Gallaudet. What were your expectations, and how did your team swim?
Yeah, it was tough to have a lot of specific expectations. I mean, even coaching in meters is kind of like, well, was that a good time or not? I think so. But my expectations were really just for us to race hard. I didn't really care about the times. We did not rest at all. We had one of the hardest practices of the year the Friday before. We really, really crushed them. I mean, they were tired. We looked heavy. We looked fatigued. I think our reaction times weren't quite there. But I mean, we were racing hard, and we had some phenomenal swims. A couple kids were a few seconds off their own meters records. Our relays were really close. Our men's 2 free was like a second and a half off of the best that they ever did last year. Without Christian, which is
nice,
exciting.
Yes.
But I don't think they had never gotten that pool record as pool record from the year 2000. So I think we're in a good spot. We've got a ways to go. And I kind of hate having this conditional thing, we did really good for being tired. I don't know, that's a lame excuse to me. I think we either did good or bad, and so I think we did pretty good. I don't care if we're tired or if we're rested or whatever. We got to race and we got to work hard. So I don't like having excuses like that, but I think all things considered, for an October 13th meet,
Sure.
we got 4 more months to work on some of this stuff. I'm pretty excited for where the team was. So yeah,
Finally, I want to look ahead to this next weekend. It's another home meet. We'll be broadcasting it. We're excited for seeing the first home meet that we'll have online. It is Gausher coming in. What are your expectations for your team, and what's the preparation like this week?
the Gaucho is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. Um, they are a pretty solid program. They got some kids that definitely give us some races. Um,
Is that what you want at this point in the season, though?
yeah, I don't I don't like easing into stuff. If we're gonna be good, we gotta be good. Um, so I want us being challenged right away. I want us getting used to racing. I want us getting used to that competition because no one's gonna take it easy on us. So um, we gotta get up and get racing. And I think our expectations are we were playing around a little bit at Gallaudet. I think we'll be in some people's more like primary events and stuff. Get them an opportunity to really measure up where they are in the events that they want to swim at the end of the year. So, um, yeah, I'm excited. I almost feel like I feel a combination of the broadcast and support. I don't want to say anything against Gallaudet because that was a legitimate meet and they had some good swims and we did not. I mean, they snuck some on us.
Sure.
I almost feel like Goucher is like our. I felt like Gallaudet was almost like a preseason meet, kind of like a warm up. We kind of had some like lower events, so it was kind of an untraditional format. Um, I feel like Goucher is finally we're warmed up, and now it's like the main event here. We got like you guys coming in, broadcasting. We have a parent support group that wasn't able to make it to Gallaudet that's making it to Goucher. So it's like a weird feeling that I also don't like because I feel like it does a disservice to Gallaudet, but like Goucher is almost like our first meet that we're really getting in the swing of things. So
Sure, and it's the only show on campus, nothing in the stadium, nothing for volleyball. It'll be swimming. Come to the Bobcat Natatorium, a 2 o'clock start. Brian Christensen, thank you for joining us week one here on the Bobcast.
yeah, thank you. That's a cool name for this thing, Bobcast. I love it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Coach. Next on the Bobcast, we have Frostburg State volleyball head coach Becky Fletcher, and the Bobcats hosted the Frostburg Tri-Match this past weekend, and 2 wins in sweeping fashion, beating York for the first conference win of the season for the Bobcats, 3-0, and beating Pitt Bradford 3-0. And, Coach, did your team surprise you not in the results, but how your team came to win 2 games, both in sweeping fashion over the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know if they surprised me as much as they just played really efficiently. We've played a really tough schedule up until this point of the season to prepare us for conference play, and I think it's paying off for us. We came out and we were aggressive offensively. We were aggressive on defense, and that characteristic really translated into a lot of efficiency for our offense, for our defense, for our serve receive. And sometimes when you're super aggressive, it's not very efficient. But on Saturday we definitely were lucky and swinging and kind of firing on all cylinders.
Well, what would you point to for Saturday in terms of your team being really loose and prepared to play? Was part of that just the fact that it was home? We had a great turnout in the volleyball gym. What really contributed to the team showing up, being focused, and excited to play volleyball?
I think the fans definitely contribute to it. I think we have a great support system in parents and students and even some of the local community that comes to see our girls play. So it's really nice to come out there and see so much support across the way from us. And they're always talking to our girls in a positive manner and just really encouraging them, which is it's fun. And I think they get into the game too. You can hear them and you can hear them get excited and you can hear them get frustrated at times. And I'm okay with that. I think the other thing is that we've been playing a really tough schedule, and we've talked about that and how difficult that has been on our young team. But this past week in practice, we've just been talking about just going out and competing and communicating and making sure that we're doing those two things. We have the skill, we have the talent, but we need to make sure that we come out and we compete. And regardless of what the score is, we're playing as hard as we can and communicating as much as we can on every point.
That's interesting. What is it? What is good communication in volleyball? We talk about it in other sports. What did your team do so well in terms of communication on Saturday?
I think that our communication is just getting better as we get more confident with each other, and so how many young players we have out there, and how many players are returning, and how many players had to fill new roles for us this year. So I think that the confidence, we're about 2 months into being with each other, almost exactly. So they've gotten to know each other on and off the court on different levels, and some people that takes years to develop, and we're asked to develop that in a few weeks with new athletes. So the confidence is a huge factor. I think the other thing about communication is there are teams that are like loud and rah-rah and cheery, and I tell them that they don't need to be like that. They don't need to be cheering and loud just to be obnoxious or intimidating to the other team. But what they do need to do is make sure they're communicating and talking about what's going on the other side of the net, and talking about what's going on their side of the net, to adjustments they need to make, changes they need to make with each other, or even just making sure that if you're calling the ball and you're talking about what's going on the other side of the net, the player beside you is more confident in you because they know you know what's going on.
And not to say that your team isn't emotional
Yeah.
or they'll get excited when it's
absolutely.
time to get excited.
Absolutely.
Because when those big moments come, players rise to the occasion, and then they're excited for them and their teammates. It's fun to watch.
It's definitely a lot of fun, and volleyball is very much about the highs and lows of the game, and so making sure you can keep those highs really high and ride that roller coaster as much as you can.
You talked about being aggressive offensively and defensively, and you can kind of see that in the hitting percentages. You out-hit both York and Pitt Bradford. And looking at the season as a whole, when Frostburg hits under 100, the Bobcats have not won a game this year.
That makes sense. Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you talk a little bit about the process of getting the team to hit more efficiency and that coming to positive results this weekend?
Yeah, so that's something we work on in practice, and putting them in more pressure situations in practice and in matches, and telling them to be aggressive and stay aggressive and play for the win, not to lose. They've been doing a good job at it, and just keep working on different shots and not hitting to the same spot and expecting it to be successful, and keep moving the ball around. Some of that stems from us being able to get our middles involved in the play this weekend. Our middles did a really great job holding some blocks, so that way our outside hitters were had a little bit less pressure on them. They were hitting a few balls less out of system. They were hitting a few balls one-on-one, which is really nice.
Frostburg, a lot of winning in tight sets over the weekend. York College, 2 of the 3 sets were 25-22 counts. The Pitt Bradford last set went beyond 25 points. You mentioned this team has been together now for about 2 months. How has this group responded to pressure or progressed in how that it handles those pressure situations?
I think this weekend we handle it the best we have all season, obviously. Pulling out even a come-behind win in that third set against Pitt Bradford. We were down by a few points. We started off a little bit shaky in that first Pitt Bradford match and came back to win, and we're pretty confident about doing it. We realized we made some mistakes. We didn't let it frazzle us. We didn't let us get too excited about it. We just said we need to change a few little things, change a little bit of our passing, change a little bit about where we're hitting and taking care of the ball, making sure that we were serving really aggressively, and we did those things. And I think that shows some maturity, that they're growing in that way as a team, that, yes, we might not win a point or a few points in a row occasionally, but we need to make sure that we can make those adjustments.
Mm-hmm. And when two good teams get together, every point, one of the two teams has to win and one of the two teams has to lose.
Correct. Somebody has to make a mistake for somebody to score a point in volleyball. So it's about learning to recover from those mistakes very quickly.
I want to finally touch, as far as individual players, kind of the cornerstones. Anyando's on the floor just about every moment. Same with Ultimus. But I want to get to Corey Smothers and just the impact that she had in just a myriad of ways over the weekend. How would you categorize how she is playing at this point in the season?
She's been a little feisty lately, and I like that on the court in the libero. So Corey has some beach experience coming from Florida. She plays a lot of beach in the summer, and so there are some times where she sees things going on the other side of the court that maybe they're scrambling or out of position. And she and I actually talked about going after that deep corner on first or second contact in the first set, and she was able to do it once in the first set. And then game was 26-25, and she comes out and she sees that spot open again and throws it back there pretty fast on, I think it was first contact.
It was a very exciting way to close the game, and it's on the highlights if anyone's interested. Yes.
Yes, it's a very exciting way for us to win a game. If I was on the other end of that, I would not be super excited, but it was fun. And they play a lot like that in practice, where they really hold each other and being accountable and being disciplined in what they're supposed to be doing. And if they catch you out of position, they try to take advantage of that in practice. So it's fun to see those things translate into a match. And when we talk about them a lot and play like that a lot in practice, it's really fun to see what our fans get to experience there.
It was a very exciting weekend, and let's take a look at the standings. Frostburg 1-2. However, both losses are to 4-0 teams in CNU and Mary Washington. So a home game in the conference tournament is still very much in play.
Yes, it is.
With games against Southern Virginia, St. Mary's, Penn State Harrisburg, and Salisbury looming. This week it's Southern Virginia and St. Mary's. And both are single games rather than a whole weekend of games. What's the preparation like this week?
This week for us is important. It's probably the most important week for us we've had all season. We only have 2 matches, so hopefully that keeps us a little bit more focused, and we don't have a lot of other things to worry about. The downfall to that is they're both on the road. SVU is a pretty tough trip to make midweek, about 3.5 hours. Their gym is very different. It's very loud because it's so compact, and it's always filled with a ton of students. So it's an exciting place to play, and it's very intimate. I think that's the best way to describe it. And then St. Mary's has had a really good season so far this year. They're taking a lot of sets away from teams, so I don't think that we should go in there light. I think we need to go in there expecting to play our hardest and our best, and if we do that, then we should have a great outcome.
Well, we are looking forward to it. 2 huge conference games this week. Coach Becky Fletcher, thank you for joining me on the Bobcast.
Thanks.
Next, we have women's soccer with head coach Brian Parker. The Bobcats lost at Mary Washington on Wednesday 3-0 and played to a scoreless tie with St. Mary's on Saturday. So 2 conference games, a loss and a draw. That leaves the Bobcats at 1-2-1 in CAC play with 3 games left to go. Frostburg will begin with the Wednesday game. Fell behind early against Mary Washington, 3 goals for the Eagles in the first half. And something we run into trouble with here, Coach, midweek road games with women's soccer and other sports, having some trouble starting. Is that something that concerns you with this team that you have in 2018?
Everyone has to look at their schedule and what their circumstances are and make the right kinds of adjustments. The weekday drive and play is difficult. I think it's difficult for everyone in multiple sports, as you mentioned. We're no different. When you look at our schedule, the wins we have had, and even the big wins we've had, we beat Gettysburg on a weekday road trip. So it's kind of hard to say that that's necessarily an issue for us. But no doubt that we did not get our legs under us on Wednesday against Mary Wash, and they had a fantastic start. They're good. They have athletes. They jumped on us early in the game. For some reason, we were not as prepared as we should have been for that. Certainly there's plenty of reasons for that we can look at and try to make corrections in terms of our just game day protocol when we travel, and we've tried to look at all that. I think the big thing is, we need to learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again. We have another weekday road trip this week, another long drive and play, the longest one, I think, down to Southern Virginia. So we have to be smart about it, and, we'll make a few adjustments. But, full credit to Mary Wash. we've had a fantastic history with them. It's been favorable to us for sure, but we've had great competitive games with them and just been a little bit better and gotten some draws and wins that could have gone either way. And credit to them, they're turning a corner in their season, and they jumped us, and we weren't ready. And you can't wait. I mean, you can't be bad for 5 minutes in women's soccer
Yep.
and expect to win games. We weren't very good for about 25, and it cost us.
Well, that Mary Washington venue, if push comes to shove and Frostburg has to go back there for a tournament game in potentially a semifinal, was it a big mismatch, or was Frostburg just surprised, outplayed for a segment of the game?
It was the latter. They have a couple special players for sure, and we had to do basically account for them. But they do some things tactically that are good for us. They gave us room in areas of the field that we could take advantage of, and we could establish some rhythm and build out of the back a bit, which not everybody allows us to do. So they have a little bit of a risk-taking formation, you might say, in this 3-5-2, and so they're soccer's all like all team tactics. It's yin and yang. You take something to give something away, and it wasn't an unfavorable setup for us. They just really had a great start and took advantage of their energy and their athletes, and I would relish an opportunity to play there or here. Hopefully we can get that rematch.
St. Mary's on Saturday. Frostburg, potentially, is that the one that the team is kicking itself for letting get away, out shooting St. Mary's 7-1 on goal in regulation, 5 shots for the Bobcats in the first OT, some good chances, a really good chance in the second OT. What's the team's perspective on that result?
Well, the goal is not 20 feet high, unfortunately. It's only 8 feet high, and we would have won the game 5-0 if it was 20 feet high. Maybe there's not so much evidence on Saturday, but we take lots of reps. We actually shoot in practice and do finishing activities all the time, and for some reason, we just weren't calm enough and composed enough when we got those chances to just put it on the frame and force a save. Now, we also did that plenty of times. I mean, if you look at the stats and we're there at the game, their keeper came up with a couple of fantastic saves. I mean, yeah, we missed the goal a lot, but I think she made a record number of saves, I think, for her. So, we also put some on frame. And look, you don't score if you don't take the shots, obviously. So we're very happy about the production on offense, but not obviously being able to put it across the line in the goal. And so, that's a fixable thing. Well, very easy to plan practice this week. We're going to take lots of reps and kind of get our confidence back, and I think we'll be fine. But again, would love a rematch in the tournament with that team. I think we were better in many ways, and unfortunately the scoreboard was not one of them.
We're sitting here with 3 games to go, and Frostburg is facing a stretch where wins are needed to get a home game here in the playoffs. Where do you turn to in terms of leadership from your players, and how can they show leadership here down the stretch at a tough point in the season?
Well, it's a mental toughness we're looking for, resiliency. We've certainly developed that throughout the year. You could call it different things. Stubbornness, just kind of will to win. I mean, we certainly need a good edge to us in terms of our preparation and our just sort of start of the game mentality to just be the feistier, more energetic, better quality team. I think we have. Again, we're playing teams that are all in the same boat. We are trying to get into the top half of the bracket, and there's nothing extraordinary or special happening. We just need to have a little edge to our game, and I think our seniors will understand that, and will provide that for sure.
Something that's been a little bit of an issue leading up to this point in the season has been availability for a lot of players, but that has meant opportunities for other players. Can you see in these next few weeks some of those opportunities and different combinations of personnel that you've been able to use potentially paying off as we get towards the conference tournament?
I don't know if there's a team in the country that doesn't have personnel issues, injury issues. This is the time of the year when, the volume of training and competitive matches just wears on people. We're no different than anybody else. We make no excuses. Yes, when there's a player that is unavailable, another player steps in. We have enough depth to manage that. Players understand when they get their opportunity, maybe unexpectedly. They need to be prepared. They need to take advantage of it. And, we've had players do that for sure. when we get players back to the lineup, maybe who were previously unavailable, we have more options. It's awesome. We can mix and match players. We had 2 players who have been wide backs for us playing as forwards in the final few minutes of that game on Saturday. So, we can try a lot of different things, and we have a little group of very versatile players that can do a little bit of everything. So, we're fine. It's disappointing when players are unavailable for whatever reasons are keeping them out because they're not a part of it, and they obviously they feel a little bit set back, but they're rehabbing and doing what they need to do, and next player up.
Ahead for Frostburg is Southern Virginia and York College this coming week, both on the road. What do the matchups look like for your team?
Well, you can't deny the facts. Southern Virginia's struggling a little bit and allowing goals, and we need to just jump on them Wednesday night and just have a good start and just keep the pressure on. And if we needed to get 100 shots to get a goal, that's what it's going to take. I mean, we're going to really need to put our foot on the gas on Wednesday night. York on Saturday, different dilemma, always feisty and physical. Also in the mix, very important game. I think that's the big game. I think the winner of that game is going to really put themselves in position to host, that 3 or 4 game, in the postseason. So we're going to have a lot to play for, but obviously just need to take one at a time and get the job done Wednesday night.
You still confident in what this team can accomplish this season?
It's almost like there's like a wet blanket over this team. It's just been very hard to figure out. I just feel like we're ready to have a breakout moment. We saw obviously some glimmers of that. We got some good results and had a good couple weeks there early on. The goal scoring has dried up for whatever reason, and so we'll just get better every day. Just keep training and developing good activities for the team to rehearse and prepare and just want them to keep having fun and grow in confidence and realize that at some point the doors will open, and I think we'll get some results.
2 big ones this week at Southern Virginia, at York College. A lot more clarity for the CAC tournament. Coach Brian Parker, thank you for joining me this week.
Thanks.
Next on the Bobcast, we have men's soccer with head coach Keith Burns. Men's soccer, a loss to nationally ranked Mary Washington 2-0, a scoreless tie against St. Mary's. The Bobcats moved to 1-2-1 in conference play, and with Marymount and Wesley exiting the CAC, there are only 3 games left in Capital Athletic Conference play. And Frostburg coming into the week was coming off a big conference win over CNU. It didn't get any easier with the schedule as the Bobcats hosted nationally ranked Mary Washington. What was the challenge that Mary Washington presented your team, and what makes them such a dangerous opponent, being ranked top 10 in the nation?
I think they're good all over the field. Not many weaknesses. They're good at putting your backs under pressure, and they play a certain style that makes you have to defend, whether it's serving balls in the box. They have a long throw in as well, corner kicks. They got big boys. They crash well. This is just, you always have to be switched on, because if you make a mistake, then the ball just could end up floating free in the box, and that's how you give up goals.
What did you make of your team's effort and compete level against Mary Washington?
I thought we were right there with them. Again, you can't always look at the box score, but I do think the shots were fairly even. We had a few chances that we didn't finish. They had a few that they didn't finish. But then, you give up a free kick. One, it's, hey, do we not give up a foul in a dangerous position? And then 2, can we defend a little bit better? Our goalkeeper kind of got exposed as he came out and couldn't get to the ball with their players running through him. And then the penalty kick, you can look at where it started and just starting positions from our defenders. Could we have had more depth? Could we have been on the inside shoulder? We could have done some things better. And then as it gets to the box, obviously we committed the foul. So, just, again, 2 little moments in the game, really. Overall, I thought the boys competed very well, and we had a chance if we don't, if they don't capitalize on one of those mistakes, and if we're a little bit more fortunate, then maybe it goes the other way. But I thought we were in it.
I thought so as well. You mentioned when we talked after the game about the alignment, it had changed against CNU to a 3-5-2. However, against Mary Washington, you switched back to an alignment with 4 backs. You mentioned that Mary Washington puts backs under pressure, makes you have to defend. What went into switching back to a previous alignment, and is your team going to use different alignments on a game-by-game basis to match your opposition?
Well, yeah, I thought our backs needed a little bit of help, so we threw the extra back in, then went back to a back four. We didn't want to get exposed and make an early mistake, and we gave up in the second half, but at least the first half they kept the guys' confidence up that we were competing with them. It's game to game, based on one, the other team, and two, how are we playing, and do we need to try to push numbers forward, or are we playing a little bit safer? So it's nice to kind of have that flexibility. We kind of always envisioned be able to do some different things with the players we have. But it is pretty much game to game how we match up and what we think will allow the boys to be the most successful.
Sure, and let's move to St. Mary's. What was the matchup like? What was the alignment decision, and then how did that game play out?
We kind of stuck with the standard 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. Again, we didn't want to expose our backs knowing their pace and athleticism up front. Turns out they have some pretty good pace and athleticism all over the field. And, that's one of those ones we just survived. Our keeper was absolutely huge, kept us in the game when we broke down. And, we didn't really do much to threaten at all. But, again, we kind of, as long as the boys show up and put in a shift and work hard and, it's soccer. There's always that chance you can steal one. And in the back line and the keeper play like that, all it takes is one free kick, one corner kick, one mistake, and, maybe you get out of there with 3 points instead of just one. But, obviously we'd like to do some things better if we had to play them again, because they definitely, just kind of overwhelmed us at times. And but, to the boys' defense, the work ethic was there, the defense was there, and Joel was huge, and that's what you're going to need when you play some of these teams that, maybe outmatch you a little bit man-to-man, but, if you're collective as a unit, you're always in it.
That was an area where we spent a lot more time and conversation about the goalkeeping situation last year. Joel Asal, as a first-year keeper, how has he really stabilized that group in the back and kept you in games?
It's just his ability. I mean, he's fearless. He's athletic. He's not the biggest guy out there, but he plays like he's 6'4". Sometimes it seems like quick off his line, takes really good angles, not afraid to come out and fight for balls in the air. So I think when the team knows they got somebody behind them that's going to keep them in the game, it allows them to kind of feel like they're always in it. Even when they know they make a mistake, there's someone back there that's hopefully going to pick them up, and it's nice. And I mean, yeah, he's had a fantastic first year, and I think he's just getting better.
Well, let's look ahead. Home against Southern Virginia on Wednesday, at York at Saturday. 2 big conference games. There are only 3 conference games remaining, and really, in search of a home game, you're going to want to win all 3 and then let the chips fall where they may. How do you think your team has improved or progressed through conference play, and do you think it'll be in position, or are you chasing wins more than anything as a result of versus a tie on Wednesday and Saturday? Really, the question sounds dumb, but will you look to take some more risks to get those wins, or kind of hope for 1 or 2 opportunities and play kind of a game like St. Mary's?
Well, we'll play every game to win. We may not take risks right from the start, but knowing that, if we lose this game, maybe we finish in 7th as opposed to 6th, but if we win it, we can get up to 4th. Maybe worth going for something at the end and pushing people forward. And they are kind of must-win games, I think, to get to that top 4, because right now we've got 1 win and a tie, so we've got to put some teams behind us. So the only way to do that is to get some head-to-heads on them and get them to drop some points. So, we're going to go for the win. And I think, it kind of works out because we kind of need to win, I think, the 3 to get a home field game. And to win the tournament, you got to win 3 in a row. So, I mean, if we can do it at least once during the season, then at least it's a realistic expectation to do it in the postseason. But obviously we've seen, these games are just so close. They could change at any moment. on any given mistake or fantastic play. So, yeah, it's exciting because I feel like we're in every game. I mean, St. Mary's was the only game where I thought we were really kind of put to the test on our back foot. The other ones, maybe there was moments in the game, but we were always in it. But these boys they are progressing. They are getting better. They didn't get down on themselves when the things didn't go where they wanted to in the beginning of the year. And you can see the confidence growing. You can see some of the freshmen developing, and some of the guys really coming into their own. And yeah, we're looking forward to finishing this off here.
Yep, Southern Virginia Wednesday, York on Saturday. Really not much to say other than those results will be huge in terms of ordering the teams for the conference tournament. So, head coach Keith Burns, thank you for chatting this week on the Bobcast.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Frostburg State Field Hockey with head coach Caitlin Thompson. And field hockey is split this week. Winners over Hood College 4-0. A loss in conference play to St. Mary's 3-1. We'll begin with Hood, the second victory of the season for the Bobcats. Your team started fast, 3 goals in the first 11 minutes. What did you like early from your squad against Hood?
Early on, we did a really good job of moving the ball around pressure, working as a team, giving effort as a team, and just finishing on the opportunities that we had inside of our circle.
How was your team able to really, in order to generate those opportunities, control the possession, take the ball away from Hood, and as you said, move around pressure? How was your team so successful in that aspect of just having the ball for the majority of the game?
We just did a very good job of communicating with each other, and we were cutting into space and just not trying to force anything that wasn't there. We were just moving, like I said, moving the ball around the pressure instead of just trying to force it through and trying to put it into something that wasn't there.
At halftime, you talked about your team wanting to be hungrier in the circle, and outside of those first 11 minutes, the Bobcats only scored once afterwards. Is that something you're continually working on, and how do you get players to be hungrier inside the circle, as you say?
Yeah, that's definitely something we work on every single day. It's just a desire that has to come within, and it's not really something that's coachable. It just has to be something that comes from within each of our student athletes, and it's there at points, but we just need to see more of it out there.
How much of it is also positioning, getting to those hot spots, identifying those hot spots, and who is supposed to be where, when? How much is that something that you worked on? And we talked a lot last year about getting to the left post, right post, the pads, that sort of thing. Does everyone? How much time has been spent really? This is your role. This is where you need to be, and the rest is coming from inside.
Yeah, so that's a lot of it. And now that the girls, the upperclassmen, know that that's our style of play, that's something that they monitor as upperclassmen. Obviously, the coaching staff monitors it as well, but you'll constantly be hearing them talk about it on the field, get to the hot spots. So they know that that's what they need to do. Sometimes it gets lost, but sometimes they are there. A lot of the times it's just they need to be cutting back to the ball and stepping up to it and not just letting the defender step in front of them.
Finally, for Hood College, 38 shots for your team, 22 penalty corners. Were you pleased with the volume of offense that your team was able to produce?
Yes, one of the goals that we had going into that game is to draw more penalty corners. That is a strength of ours. So obviously 22 is a lot of penalty corners. So that was we were proud of them for being able to accomplish that. So we just have to continue to do that against tough opponents, but just make them count.
Well, it was a chance to do it against a Hood College team. And you got a lot of shots and a lot of penalty corners, and that's a 4-0 win. I do want to shift gears to St. Mary's, and kind of like the Hood game, your team seemed to be in control early, 3 penalty corners in the first 10 or so minutes before St. Mary's had its first really good chance, but St. Mary's scored first. Can you point to what do you think led to your team starting so strong, and then how did St. Mary's really kind of respond to your energy?
Yeah, our girls, I think they came out fired up for senior game. They obviously wanted to play well for the seniors. So I was very proud of them and the way that we started in that game. I think just this minor adjustment we needed to make was as the ball was coming into our attacking circle, just receiving a little bit better so that we could create more of those opportunities. But in the midfield, and we did such a good job of, again, moving that ball around the pressure, not forcing anything that wasn't there, and getting opportunities to move the ball into our attacking circle. We just had to connect and get shots off.
Well, St. Mary's scores first, and your team responded very quickly with a goal to tie the game. Did you like how your team, even though there was a sudden change in momentum, was able to get right back into the game?
Yeah, I mean, resiliency is very important to a team to be able to battle back, especially in a conference game like that. So I was very proud of our girls for, being resilient and coming back out and scoring right away. Just we just got to take care of the opportunities that we have.
Looking at the second half of the St. Mary's game, the St. Mary's seemed to have more control of the ball in the second half. How did things get more challenging for your team as the game progressed?
We just so in the beginning, something we are doing really well is stepping to the ball and stepping in front of the defense and really putting solid pressure on the ball carrier. And then we are doing a good job of double teaming to get the ball back sooner. And some of those great things that we kind of emphasized at halftime kind of fell away a little bit in the second half. So we just have to do a better job of making sure we're doing those things for a full 70 minutes because it matters and those little things matter. Just stepping up to a ball instead of waiting to receive the ball, or moving with your feet as you're dribbling the ball to and really finishing out a play to send a pass. All of those little things matter, and we just weren't taking care of those little things in the second half, and it kind of bit us in the butt.
And that adds up to St. Mary's scoring twice in the second half and winning 3-1. Even though St. Mary's came out on top, my impression of that game that Frostburg is definitely in the same tier in terms of talent and potential, despite the result and despite the records of the two teams. Is that something that you believe as well? And how do you impart that to your players where, this is a team we played with and could definitely have won that game?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we talk about often. When we were looking at film before the game, we knew that we had the opportunity to win this game. I truly think we had the opportunity to win any game that we are a part of, and I let the girls know that. It's truly just us taking care of the little things for all 70 minutes. We can't come out slow. We can't in the first half. We can't come out slow in the second half. We just have to piece together a full 70-minute game.
Well, looking this week, 3 chances for that, all on the road, at Mary Washington on Tuesday, at McDaniel on Wednesday, at Christopher Newport on Saturday. It's a busy week. How can you manage all that time on the road, and how hard is it to practice when you're traveling so much and deciding what to practice and how long to practice with so much time on the bus?
Yeah, so we're just trying to make sure the girls are getting into the athletic training facilities that we have and taking care of their bodies, whether they're injured or not injured, and just making sure that they're getting the proper rest they need to get once they're off the field. But when we're on the field at practice and games, just making every rep count and making sure that we're focused when we're there.
What are you looking for from your team this week?
I just like I said, we just have to put together a full field hockey game. We do such a great job in spurts, and we just have to prolong that over a full 70 minutes. If we can play our brand of field hockey for a full 70 minutes, we are a very, very tough team to compete against.
Well, we're looking forward to it this week. 3 games, 2 conference contests. Caitlin Thompson, thank you for joining me this week.
Thank you.
Next on the Bobcast, we have Frostburg State football coach Delane Fitzgerald. The Bobcats now ranked number 4 in the nation, 5-0 after a 56-0 win over William Patterson. And Coach, I didn't see this game. I was in the volleyball gym. What did you think about the way that your team played on Saturday, and something we've been talking about this year? Did your team play like itself?
How did the volleyball game go? How did we
Two
do?
wins.
2 wins?
Beat York for the first conference win of the season and swept Pitt Bradford.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had 2 matches and we won them both?
Yes, sir.
How about that? Good for us. Go Bobcats.
Go Bobcats. How about football? Did the team play like itself on Saturday?
We started slow, extremely slow, a little bit lackadaisical out of the gates, and then at the end of the first quarter we started to get a grasp of what was going on, what we should be doing, and had a big second quarter.
Why do you think your team started slow?
Bad coaching during the week. The head coach is not very good.
Well, were you expecting an energy in playing consecutive weeks and getting to play at home playing in consecutive weeks?
I like it when we start fast. We're usually pretty good in the second and third quarters, but you'd like to start faster than we've started the last 2 weeks. And we scored 1 touchdown in the first quarter of the last 2 games, and that's unacceptable. And we've got to be better at getting the young men prepared, and we need to start better. The young men in the program need to have a sense of urgency at the start of the game and not go through a feeling out process every week where we feel our opponents out and then we're like, okay, this is who they are. Now we know that we're better than them, and then we exert ourselves. We need to exert ourselves from the opening kickoff.
Is that surprising to you, considering how experienced your offensive group is with how many seniors and multiple year starters you have?
I don't call it surprising because it's not unexpected, so it's not surprising. Here's what it is. It's disappointing when you return 8 starters on offense and 8 really, really good players, and you've got 8 senior starters on offense. You expect it to be a little better than it's been to start with. Now, we're playing okay. We just don't start very well.
Well, what helps the offense and some of the numbers and some of the points per game numbers is the special teams unit, which popped again. Another punt return touchdown, another blocked punt touchdown. Other teams have to expect this from your special teams group. How does your team continue to impact games in such big ways here when the film is out on you guys, you make splash plays, and you continue to do so?
Yeah, Pete Mayer, our special teams coordinator, is doing a nice job of getting the young men ready, and he has a good game plan for them each week. And then here's what happens, and what happens with good football teams anywhere, good athletic teams anywhere. The young men that he's talking to and coaching during the week believe in what's being done. They believe in what's being said to them, and then they go out and execute it because they have total belief in what they're doing on Saturday. The amount of time we spend on special teams during the week trumps all of our opponents, and it helps us, gives us an edge on Saturdays.
Well, another game, and to speak to special teams, when your team scores a special teams or defensive touchdown, it has not lost under your leadership in the 5 seasons you've been here. I want to shift to the Frostburg defense. 2 weeks in a row, FSU has intercepted 3 passes, and of the 7 interceptions for your team on the season, 7 different guys have made that play, 4 linebackers, 3 DBs. What has made your defense so successful in taking the ball away through interceptions this year?
All 7 of our interceptions are by different players, really?
Yes.
Good for us. I didn't know that stat. Our interceptions are up from years past. Our team is different. Our defense is different than they were last year, and we're playing different fronts and different coverages. And when you play a lot more zone, you have a chance at interceptions. In the past, we've been a lot of man-to-man and a lot of pressure and blitzing, and we're not doing as much of that now. And let me say this, we're still pressuring and blitzing, but we're playing a lot more zone behind it, and the kids are getting their hands on footballs and getting both hands on footballs, and we're catching them. Good for us and good for our defensive coaching staff.
To follow up with the defense and the staff, the numbers on Saturday just screamed, I've said it before, John Kelling defense in terms of negative plays and situational football. 13 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, no third down conversions allowed. How is this defense really coming into its own?
I don't know if I would say they're coming into their own. They just play really, really hard. We don't have a huge defensive identity right now because the players on our defense are so young. But Coach Kelly and the other defensive staff, Coach Mayer and Coach Wade and Coach Proctor and Coach Lowry and Coach Puffenbarger and Coach Madgenson, all of those guys on the defensive staff deserve credit in getting them ready to play and then having them play hard. And you take out the first 2 or 3 series on Saturday, and they played extremely hard. But that they don't have an identity yet, and hey, good for them that they don't. That means there's a lot of room for improvement.
Interesting. A lot of guys had opportunities with the margin of victory being what it was on Saturday that aren't guys who necessarily start out games or are big contributors every single week. Does anyone stand out in taking their opportunity and doing a nice job against William Patterson?
Yeah, Isaiah Horn stood out at the end of that game. The way he runs the ball, and Isaiah hadn't been healthy since he got here. He rolled his ankle the first or second day of camp, and it's still giving him some trouble. But at 85%, he's still a pretty good player, and we were happy to see him break out a little bit at the end of the game. You're putting me on the spot here because now you're making me name all the young guys.
Well, this is just a chance for you to recognize if anyone really popped.
And before that, Lincoln Akubu had to step in at punt returner and did a really good job returning punts on Saturday, and special teams player of the week, and good for him. Trevor Craig, freshman linebacker that's playing a bunch for us as a freshman, had a big first half with a sack and an interception, and he did really, really good job. The one late, Jacob Beiser got in at defensive tackle and showed us a couple of things there, and he had a tackle for loss and a sack, I think. But we were happy about that. But in summarizing the whole thing, Andy, the end of those games, that it gets to be a mess and it gets to be unorganized and a blowout. When you blow someone out, all those kids get in there, and it's usually not a whole lot of fun. I enjoyed the maturity of our football program on Saturday, that it didn't become unraveled and become kind of a crap show where just everybody's showing himself and acting bad on the sidelines and all. That they handled themselves very, very adult and mannerly. And then to answer your question and stop rambling here, it's fun to watch the young guys get their first taste of college football, their first taste of playing in a varsity game, college football. That one's a lot of fun for the coaching staff and for the players.
Looking ahead, and this kind of reminds me of last season where there was a stretch where Frostburg won 3 games in a row, William Patterson, Southern Virginia, Montclair by huge margins of victory, and then boom, here's Kane, and it's an 11-point deficit at halftime. How do you kind of keep your football team honest? And I know your philosophy is always to win that next week. What's your process to getting to that next week and focusing in on what is Montclair this week?
One of the biggest reasons for you said boom, then you're down to Kane 11 at halftime. One of the biggest reasons we were missing 6 starters.
True.
So we suspended a player and dismissed a player for conduct unbecoming, and then we had some other players that were just banged up that week and couldn't go. But that's in my career, that's the most that we had ever had, where they couldn't play, and that was a big part of that deficit in that game. And we still had some of those players out the following week when we played Salisbury last year. I'm not interested in talking about any stretches or any streaks or any of that other stuff. If we're going to put together the type of fall that we're capable of putting together and everybody's going to have fond memories of this fall, we need to focus on Montclair State Saturday at lunchtime with a 12 p.m. kickoff, and that needs to be the only thing that we're thinking about right now. As Bill Belichick says, we're on to Montclair State.
On to Montclair State. Montclair started the season 5-0, played a competitive game with Salisbury, lost 17-15, didn't surrender any points after the first quarter. Another ingredient to this mix is last year Frostburg beat Montclair 62-3 on homecoming. They're going to be motivated, ready to play. What kind of challenge do you expect from that team?
I expect all we can eat. They're at home, 12 p.m. kickoff. We beat them pretty handily last year for our homecoming. They've got revenge in their hearts. They've got a lot of motivation on their side. And then let's get down to what really matters. They're a good football team. They're talented on offense. They may have the best 2 or 3 special teams players in the conference. As good as we are on special teams, they've been as good as we've been or better. They blocked 2 punts on Saturday against Salisbury. It seemed like every time Salisbury kicked off to them, they returned the ball past the 50-yard line. Their kick returners are really, really good. Their punter and kicker is as good as any punter and kicker, and the same guy does both things for him, but he's the best special teams player in this conference. If I'm not mistaken, he might have been special teams player of the year last year, but a good football player. And then as far as their coaching staff has done a phenomenal job of getting those young men to play hard. to believe in and play hard. Their offense is tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar, and they flip it over on defense. And their defensive guys, and they changed their defensive system. They changed what they do on defense and went to an odd front. They've been an even front in the past, but they're blitzing and bringing pressure, and they got more than 11, but they got 11 guys on the field each play that are playing extremely hard for their coaching staff and for each other, and they're impressive to watch. Andy, they are a lot of fun to watch when you sit and pull up the film of them. And then going back to their offense, they finally found a quarterback that's serviceable, and he does a nice job, going to be a good player going forward. And then they rotate in a bunch of wide receivers and have spread it out, and the quarterback does a nice job of throwing the football to them.
Well, we're excited for it. A big-time road matchup for Frostburg State. Montclair at noon on Saturday. Coach, thank you for joining me this week on the Bobcast.
Go Bobcats.
Next on the Bobcast, we have cross-country head coach Dale Louie and the men's cross-country team winners again this weekend at Penn State Fayette. The women's team taking 4th place. And, Coach, as you mentioned last week, this is your first appearance at Penn State Fayette, your first time on that course. Your first time at that meet. What was the course like? What were the conditions like? What was the competition like? And then finally, how did your team run?
Well, actually, the course was modified from evidently what they normally run because of the weather we've all been experiencing here. So it was again muddy, extremely muddy, and hilly, which made for some dangerous spots. We'll have to see here. Hopefully, we've dodged a bullet. Braxton Clark going down one of the hills, smacked into a tree, and I was actually trying to get him to drop out of the race because he fell back. We've got conference coming up and everything, but he kept running. He backed off quite a bit and everything. So we'll see today when practice starts. Usually after this kind of slop, sometimes you end up feeling some stuff a couple days later that you didn't feel out there.
Really?
Romano twisted his ankle a little bit warming up, and so it wasn't nice.
Your team survived the meet.
That's
what you're
that's
saying.
about right. Yeah, and we'll see injury-wise whether we're, how we're surviving, because we've had some people out the last couple of weeks. So. Not a good thing, 2 weeks out from the conference championship.
What kind of competition was Penn State Fayette able to bring in, and how did your runners respond to it?
Pretty good competition. We saw a couple of Division II schools, some D3s that we haven't seen yet this year. One of the advantages of going around on some different parts of the region or whatever is we get to see some different schools, and we probably mix it up a little bit more than some schools, in that regard. Our location here makes it difficult to attract people to come to Frostburg to compete.
Sure.
That's a negative. But on the positive side, we're kind of centrally located. We can go east, west, and pick up, different kinds of meets, different kinds of competition. So it's, I think ultimately, that's a plus for our runners because. In fact, we were talking about this a little bit before Saturday. We hadn't, you started out by talking about not having been on this course before, and I thought that was going to be a good thing for us because the championships will be on a course that, nobody's seen. So, let's see how we do on something unfamiliar, even though it's not the conference course.
Well, considering it was unfamiliar and considering the conditions, what did you make of your team's performances?
I thought we hung in there pretty well. Again, on the men's side, our depth is saving us. Like Braxton, as I said, messed himself up a little bit there. We had some people not run real well this week who had run very well last week. And then we had some people that really stepped it up, this week. Colin Flynn had an exceptional race. Fisher Wheeler came back, with a second good meet in a row, and we really needed him to place where he did because of some of the things that transpired during that race there. Matt Whitley, ran an exceptional race. He's coming on strong as he usually does at the end of the year. He's Mr. Steady, and he can finish anywhere from 4th to 7th on our team, but he's always going to run his guts out.
So, solid performance from the men's side, winning overall. Robbie Romano, of course, finishing first for. Again, has Romano surprised you this season with how many races he is winning outright, and how has he performed compared to your expectations so far for this fall?
Well, we expected Robbie to have a good year, and he's had a good year, and hopefully that will continue, and I have every confidence that it will. It was kind of interesting this weekend. Again, a different course. So, as I said, he and I talked a little bit about that. And then he ran up against some new people, and he ran up against some people that he's seen before this year. And it was interesting to see that some of them, I would say, adopted some different tactics to try to deal with him. And it didn't work.
Really?
So I thought that was good for Robbie. That these guys that he's raced against recognize his abilities and what he's accomplished this year, and know that he's a target, so to speak, and he's dealing with that, and that's good because he'll be a target come conference championship.
Sure. Let's shift gears to the women's team. Sarah McCurry, the first finisher again. How did she fare, and how did the team do as a whole?
Really another really strong race for Sarah. She just really powered through the mud there. Didn't let it defeat her. And that's kind of the key in those kind of conditions. And, I've said this prior weeks. She is really becoming a racer. She's becoming highly competitive. She is running smart from the standpoint of taking what the course has given you. It was slop going up some of these hills and down some of these hills. But there was one spot in particular on the course where the footing was at least a little bit better, and it was a downhill, and she ran that extremely aggressively, which she had to. And, again, she just moved up place-wise as the meet went along, and she's beating some people that we've seen earlier in the year that have beaten her, so that's another very positive sign.
Finally, this is the final meet of the regular season. So closing that chapter, the men's side, 2 wins, 3 second-place finishes, a nice showing at DeSales. How did this regular season go compared to your expectations on the men's side?
Well, we knew we had a lot of returners. The question was, what kind of shape would they be in, and how committed would they be to, to pushing and taking us to another level. And I would say, we've had very positives on that side of things. And we really haven't had a meet yet where we've had everybody firing on all cylinders.
Sure.
And I don't, we're not going to have that with some of the injuries that we have. But we are heading in the right direction. We continue, like I've said a number of times, to see people stepping up. I see people who don't have a real good race who come back the next race, very determined to make amends for what had happened the week before. And if you're going to be successful, you've got to have that drive. And the men have been exhibiting it. Sarah's been exhibiting it. Our women are slowly starting to get into a little bit of shape. So we've got 2 weeks here, and it's we can sit back and for different people, we're going to have to do different things.
Sure.
Some of the people that are injured will have to get them healthy, and those who aren't, we're pedal to the metal.
Frostburg State is idle next weekend before heading to Southern Virginia October 27th. How do you kind of manage the whole spectrum of injured, banged up, didn't have a great race, looking to bounce back quickly? How do you manage all the different types of athletes and attitudes right now, moving forward towards championships 2 weeks away?
Well, we'll probably become more individualized with our training for
Sure.
these people, as we, determine, their physical condition and what we feel like they need, because different runners need different things. We'll be looking to increase the tempo of some of what we're doing, because we're trying to obviously peak at hopefully the right time of the year. And, we've already done some workouts kind of geared towards the conference championships. This past week we ran a workout, really specifically for the what we believe we'll see on that conference course. And, we'll continue to do a little bit of that. Weather will dictate things. We'd like to stay, off the track, but if we can get on the track, we'll utilize that, especially if it stays a little wet here. We need to get people thinking right now about that conference. We always say, if you're on that van there going to to the meet, and you're just then starting to think about that race, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we'll start to talk about those things. We're going to go back to some basics. We've gotten away from some drill work as we've been racing here a lot, but now we've got some time to go back and slow things down, so to speak, and focus on some of those basics.
Well, we are looking forward to it. We'll check in with you next week, Coach. Conference championships 2 weeks away. Thank you for talking this week on the Bobcast.
Thank you, Andy.